Hey guys, we are back from the break. Whoops. And I just wanted to say thank you guys for showing up again. I see Army Doc is here and Boots is here. Army Doc, by the way, it's almost Veterans Day. So to a veteran from a veteran, happy Veterans Day. And anybody else who might be in chat who's a veteran that I don't know about. As you can see, Boots is a mod for the channel. We just modded her. So congratulations, Boots. Thank you for being so good to us and so supportive for so long. Thank you, Army Doc. Mouse is back. All right.
Hello.
Just giving us a whoop, one whoop. Happy Veterans Day from Army Doc. Happy Veterans Day to Army Doc. So we have about, I would say, 7 more minutes until they resume, right?
We think, yeah. My best guess is around 3.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I know a lot of people aren't in here yet, but for those of you who are in here, how many of you saw the Three Sisters short film that Bob and I made? Ooh, we got 2 whoops from Mouse now. Whoop, whoop. Mouse saw it. Ooh, that's cool. Well, we did. Do you want to say anything about that, Bob? Army Doc has not seen it. Keep that in mind.
I don't know. There might be a part 2.
Might be. There's got to be.
There's going to be a part 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, something maybe. I don't know if it's going to deal with that particular thing or be completely different, but there will be a part 2.
Yeah. Bob and I actually are looking to do a few projects in the future that involve like that kind of vibe. I don't know if you guys are into that kind of thing, but we do have people that we are trying to collaborate with and will be collaborating with. We just have to get the schedules together. So we're thinking something in the spring of next year for you guys to see. So hopefully we'll be able to do that and also taking in any content requests that you guys have.
Yeah.
Whether it's, go ahead.
What we're talking about doing the movie, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah, in the spring.
That's going to be a big project if that works out the way we want it to. Either way, it's going to be pretty amazing, right?
Right. And we will be starting to film it in the spring. I think we will probably incorporate some kind of either incentive or contest or something. I don't know the right terminology for it, but maybe one of our subscribers could appear in that short film is what I'm thinking. We do have a few people who have agreed to do like short little parts in it. So we just have to get with the people that we are creating it with, and then we will bring you that information as soon as we can. Right, Bob?
Yeah. Yeah, it's still in the works. It's obviously in talking. Like, I don't know if that's considered talking stages, but yeah.
Right, the planning stages. But it is a definite plan. So hopefully you guys look forward to that and enjoy that, as well as the 2 videos that Bob's working on editing for JCW Wrestling and for Insane Clown Posse for their Train of Terror tour, pretty much the Devil's Night and the Hollow Wicked, where we had the press passes, which I have to say every time we talk about it, I am completely grateful for that opportunity that Violent J gave to us. That was our very first time having press passes, so it is an absolute honor to have been invited there by Violent J himself.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to give you a second in case you wanted to say anything there.
Yeah, it was amazing. Still doesn't make sense in my mind. but
Yes.
it does.
But it does. You know what I mean? At the same time, it's just like an over. I don't know. For those of you who don't know who Violent J is, he is half of the Insane Clown Posse. We've done a few videos where you can see who he is if you're not familiar with him, but he is full of magic and happiness that he spreads everywhere he goes. And we were lucky enough to feel that magic through him. And I expect that we will continue to feel that with the things that we have coming up.
Yeah, he basically watched one of our videos. He liked what we did. He got a hold of us. He did a video with us. He invited us to come check out the train at Tawatal.
The whole tour, yeah. He invited us to, yeah.
Which we didn't. We sadly said no. But
Army Doc became a YouTube member.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, Army Doc. Thank you so much. Sorry, Bob. I had to say it.
But yeah, the video is coming out great. I think we're gonna have it out by next week. Maybe probably like, what is today? Thursday?
Yeah, later in the week, because we have some wrestlers who are sending us videos, and I gave them a deadline of Monday. So we want to make sure not to just throw those in there and just, you guys know how Bob does it. He takes his time and he does a good job. You guys will be very, very impressed, whether you're a fan of JCW JCW wrestling or not, a fan of wrestling or not. I guarantee that this video will catch you in the feels, and you will feel really good after watching both the JCW wrestling video and the Insane Clown Posse video.
Yes.
You're like, yes.
Yes.
Bob agrees, guys. So it looks like now we have about 1 minute before they may start. Maybe a few minutes. I'm not sure. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that because I don't see him in the chat yet, but Fudge was requesting paranormal stuff. So I just want to bring up the Three Sisters situation.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to do something like soon. I mean,
Mouse commented Bob's sprinkle of perfection.
Yes, sprinkle it right out.
And Boots says, so talented, right, Mouse? You're so talented, Bob. He's very humble, you guys. He takes it in, but you wouldn't know. Like he's super humble about it. Like I always tell him that he makes really great videos, and he's looking at me like, "Are you saying that because I'm his girlfriend?" But that's not why. I wouldn't rather work with anybody on YouTube besides you, babe.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Huh. So, let's see. We got the paranormal thing coming. We got the wrestling thing coming. The Insane Clown Posse thing coming. I was interested. Look at Bob's got a clown nose on. Yeah, you have stickers now. It's cool. Yeah, Bob's got this. He was going to wear that nose, actually. Remember, you said you were going to wear that clown nose on Devil's Night, but...
I did for like 2 seconds.
Yeah, for 2 seconds. I like the wig you wore. I don't know if you got to see that, Mouse, but Bob was wearing this like heavy metal guy like attire for Devil's Night because Insane Clown Posse was doing a set where they were dressed like heavy metal guys. There it is. That's Bob in his wig during Devil's Night. Obviously, that's me right next to him. That's our yellow shirt, guys. You can't see it because my press pass is covering it, but there is like a, part of our merch right there. And the sleeves aren't like that. That's like, I did that.
There's the sticker too. Oh,
there you go. Yeah, that's a cool sticker too. I have it on my car, you guys. Yeah. We don't really like talk about merch that much because we don't want to make you guys think it's all about like selling things to you, but Bob really did like find a good site for that and like a huge variety of merch because I noticed that a lot of YouTube channels, they just do like, like coffee cups or hats and shirts or whatever. So we got like, I don't know, what are a few of the interesting things that we we have, Bob, you think?
We have
Like the magnets?
I think the hats, the stickers, there's pins, there's like the stickers are cool because they're not very expensive. I think you get 5. Or no, that maybe that's the button pin thing. But there I think you get maybe 5 pens for like $2.99. I don't know. The stickers are pretty cheap. The shirts are a little bit cheaper than the bonfire site. I like the ink better. There's more choices as like in there's like champion sweatshirt, and there is also like Adidas, I believe.
There's like a varsity jacket. There's like a stuffed animal, right?
Yeah, there's better, it's better quality like t-shirts and sweatshirts. So that's what I liked about it. And not that bonfire was bad or anything. It's just like they were pretty expensive. And like I said, you can add things to the shirt. It'll go up, obviously in price. I tried to keep like the everything like smaller and like littler so it wasn't super expensive.
Right, and it's less boxy. I felt like the bonfire merch we had was kind of boxy, like the image. You know what I mean?
Well, that was just the image that I made, and the ones that I kind of like created were more rounded and less like just a picture type deal.
Yeah, Mouse said she's gonna check out the new merch. Yeah,
I'll put the. I think I.
there's like,
Yeah.
I think it's I counted one time. Remember, it was like 140 different kinds of merch.
Yeah, there's depending on what shirt it is too. The sizes go up pretty big. But I'm not really sure. But hang on, sorry, I'm.
Oh, Army Doc is asking where we go to see the merch. Bob is trying to pull up the link, I think.
Yeah, I'm fumbling around right now. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It is good though. Like I like it, just so you guys know, like for me, when I go look at people's merch, I'm like, what? Like that's expensive. So like I made sure we made merch that was like reasonable enough. Like, like if you want to support us by like showing, like grabbing a sticker and putting it on something where somebody will see it, it means just as much to me as if you spent more money on a larger merch item. Like it's not about money, but it is good for people to know who we are and to like represent us with support or whatever in that way. Oh, there's the link. Oh, Mouse said she drinks from her Strange and Bob Kuhn mugs every morning and night. It's so sweet. I love that. We have that too. We have that coffee cup.
Yeah, if the coffee cup's clean, I always go for it. And I have a Sasquatch coffee cup.
Oh yeah. I bet Violent J would be jealous of that.
Probably. So what time is it? It's 3:05. What is
Yeah,
up
it's
with
3:05. They take their time, They're in Idaho, so I don't know. We could show something, I guess, if you guys are just, we're just staring at a screen here all together for 13 minutes, almost 14 minutes now.
Or no, I wish I would have loaded up like more pictures. We've kind of showed a lot of these pictures. I mean, maybe not everybody's seen them. I'll run through
That's
them.
okay to show them. Let me get 1 second.
That's James Storm. He's a professional wrestler and actor.
Yep, he wrestles for the JCW.
It's me.
That's Bob.
There was ICP's stage. They were
Yeah, that's like when nobody.
They were the Mario Bros.
That's really cool. Did Zach do that?
Yeah.
Bob's friend did that, you guys. That's set.
He helped design. He said that was the most like they got a lot of responses from that stage.
Hello, TZ.
That was after. That's the aftermath of the
Yeah,
card.
so for Mouse in the chat, she's like, wow. So see, that's carpet, right?
So the picture on top is on top of the stage, and the picture on the bottom is on top of the stage, looking down to where we were taking pictures at.
Oh yeah, so there's the barricade.
Yeah.
In the bottom picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's all Fago soaked in that carpet. But that's a brilliant idea, you guys. We saw it and Bob was like, it's weird they have carpet in here. But I think it's so they can just roll it up at the end of the night.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking. I wasn't thinking. I knew exactly, once I said that, I knew exactly what it was for. I was like, oh, duh.
Right. It's pretty funny. But it's probably heavy. The carpet is probably super heavy at that point in the night, right?
Right. Yeah. Gross.
The security was telling us that they had to stay till like 2 a.m. or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they were, till 2:30 something.
Crazy. And that guy right there is Painted Psychopath on Instagram. A lot of people know that guy. He goes to everything. He's always right in the front, and he always has really great makeup.
He's in that picture too.
Yeah, that whole group right there is very, very photogenic. Like when we first got our press passes, and we were like, like going back and forth when the artists started, and we were doing our first 3 songs for each artist. When I went past them, immediately I knew they were going to like ham it up for the camera, and they did not let up the whole time. They were full of energy. There's Manny.
There's the homie. Such an awesome dude.
Yeah, he's so good to us. We interviewed him. If you guys aren't sure who that is because he has makeup on, we interviewed him at The Gathering in the movie tent. And we interviewed him at JCW. He was in like constant contact with us. He has a very, very heartfelt message in the JCW video that I cannot wait for you guys to see. And for the ICP video as well. Yep, TZ, that's TZ's homie too. Manny is a friend to all. You guys, if you don't know, Manny is Alcatraz 187 on Instagram, and he does stream on Sunday nights. I don't know when else he does, but he's also on The Shaggy Show with Shaggy 2 Dope on Twitch and on YouTube and on Talks Hit.
I think they're going to be on soon, actually. I think they're going to be on at 3:30.
No way. TZ, what time is Shaggy on? Yeah, Boots, we're making a lot of connections, actually. The biggest one being Violent J, but Manny definitely is super, super amazing. Oh, okay. On Twitch, he is Traz187. Thank you, TZ. TZ is very supportive of everybody in the Juggalo community. 2 o'clock your time. On Sundays? Is that what you're saying, Manny, on Sundays, or are you saying Shaggy? Because it's 3:10 p.m. here right now. Dang, Bryan Kohberger hearing. Oh, he streams every Sunday at 2 o'clock. Okay. So you guys, if you want to catch him, sorry, Bob.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you guys want to catch him Sundays on Instagram, 4 o'clock. Trez187 on Twitch. And Alcatraz 187, I believe, I can check that, on Instagram. But he is a pretty incredible person.
So,
Army Doc, I hope I'm not like keeping you away from your Minecraft. Go ahead, Bob. What were you going to say?
I don't know. I was going to say, yeah, he is live today.
Oh, Shaggy is?
Yeah.
I can check.
3:30 or 4, I'm thinking.
Oh, okay. So he's probably going to be on like 30 minutes.
Wow, what are they doing over there?
I'm not sure, but For Manny, you guys, his name, I'll write it in there for Instagram. It's Alcatraz 187 US. Not sure what just happened there. Well, multi-talented. Army Doc is playing Minecraft and watching us.
Sweet.
So that's Manny's name on the screen right there, you guys, on Instagram. Let me see. That was interesting. Mouse is painting your living room. Jane is back. Yeah, I don't know why their lunch break is taking this long. Any guesses, you guys? Shaggy's at 4 o'clock today. Well, better hurry the heck up, Idaho court. So, is there anything we can show in the meantime, like of our stuff?
Yeah, if you want me to.
Yeah, I can see if you pull something up. I can keep it on my phone.
You're gonna watch
Yeah.
on something else. Okay. What would you like to watch?
Anything that's under. Let's see. What was our last Bryan Kohberger video? That's 8 minutes. I just don't want you guys to just sit here and like wait for
Right.
my babbling. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Ada County Courthouse. Okay. Yeah, I have it on my phone. So if you play something, it's live.
Check
The
this
court
out.
is
I'm
live.
going to show you how I afforded this car.
Did you hear me?
Okay, you ready? All right, 100.
The
They just
court is
went
live.
they just
Yeah.
went live. Great.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's okay.
Glad I backed out of it and like went
Just
all
go to
off.
Ada County.
These
Yeah.
cases from the Supreme Court indicating that
Thanks,
prosecutors
Army Doc.
do not have to have anybody determine whether or not they can file the death penalty and that they can drop it out of a sense of mercy. I think that's a slightly side question to if they choose to go forward with it, who can stand up and say, before we spend years on one of these cases, that this is not the appropriate case, someone besides the prosecutor, which is what we have with grand juries and preliminary hearings, et cetera. And so we still believe that the argument here is one that can be passed on by this court and that hasn't necessarily been ruled on by these other cases that we also think should be overturned. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
I believe I have all the remaining
All
arguments,
right,
so
well,
whichever the court would like
let's
to.
finish up topic 9 with your contention that the death penalty should be struck because it violates international law.
Thank you, Your Honor. So that motion is largely premised on the International Convent of, I'm gonna have to pull it up because it's the ICCPR. International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And so essentially the argument comes down to this. We have signed and ratified a treaty that would put, we think, additional requirements on what we would do if we're going to have a death penalty in this country, and obviously we have one. One of those is a requirement that we make sure that we're not arbitrarily killing people. And the other one is that people are not being essentially tortured.
My understanding is when the time that convention was ratified with the understanding that to the extent that it is agreeing to anything, it is agreeing to afford the Eighth Amendment protections.
That's correct, Judge. And I think to some extent, what we're arguing is the Eighth Amendment and the ICCPR work together, and that we can look at these international obligations and the Eighth Amendment and say that for them, they essentially are the same thing. That's why we talk about.
Well, I think you're looking at it from two different prisms. I think what the state is saying, to the extent that this covenant applies, which, is a question about whether it's self-executing and all the rest, it only governs to the extent that the Eighth Amendment, apart from that, would have protected that situation. Whereas what I think you're arguing is that the Eighth Amendment must be read to be broader as to what international law would dictate.
I think if what we're saying is that the state would argue that we read the Eighth Amendment and that's what the international law must be, we're saying you have to read the international law to decide what the Eighth Amendment.
So you're having the
Text.
international law dictate what the United States Constitution means.
Correct. And we are doing that on the basis of what the United States has said itself about the fact that they believe that they live up to these things, and the fact that we discussed the charming Betsy canon, which is obviously a very old canon and typically is just about whether or not our statutes are in line with our treaties. But I think particularly in this case, where the United States has essentially said, we signed on to this treaty because we live up by these same standards that everyone else does. We can look at what the international community thinks about those standards that we said we also abide by when we're determining whether or not we're living up to the standards in the Constitution. And
But what they said specifically is that we think that we are living up to those, even though we have and will enforce a death penalty.
And I think, which is why we're not saying necessarily that the death penalty would be struck if it was done properly. Our argument is that the way that Idaho has its scheme set up, there are far too many statutory aggravators, and some of them are just big enough to drive a Mack truck through. And so just about every murder could be charged and have the death penalty attached to it. And so that doesn't require the narrowing that we've said we're going to provide. And it certainly doesn't live up to what the international community would expect from us.
Yeah, I understand the argument.
Well,
I'll be frank, it's falling about as flat as you would expect it to fall before our Supreme Court or the Supreme Court of the United States.
well, Your Honor, it's an argument and it must be made. So
You need to make a record.
thank you, Judge.
Your Honor, unless the court has any questions, I'm okay.
I don't. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's talk about the contemporary standards of decency.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I think the main case for this one was Roper v. Simmons. Unless I'm confusing it with Atkins, but essentially the court has said that when deciding what contemporary standards are in terms of what's cruel and unusual, that the court first looks at what the state legislatures are doing and then makes a decision based on its own determination of what it is it's going to be. But when we look at those cases, they also look at other things. They look at international law. They look at what religious organizations are saying. I mean, they're obviously looking for what's the consensus going on.
I think Idaho Supreme Court said is what we look at is legislative and governmental determinations and actions.
That I think I think that's Abdullah where they had said that. And I think that was partly because the way that it was and in those cases, it seemed like the record that was brought up to them was somewhat sparse. And so hopefully we've provided more information than they had at those times. But in those cases, the number of states that still allowed the death penalty, I think, was around 35. And as the court, as we noted, that number has dropped somewhat precipitously since that time.
And those would be the legislative activities. I think what I was, taking issue with is the idea that they would look to what religious and other sort of non-governmental advocacy groups would argue or accept.
Well, I can only say that Roper definitely looked at international law. And if it wasn't Roper, then it was Atkins. But the one about children and whether or not they can face the death penalty, they definitely looked to international law. And so I don't think there's anything that says that the court can't look at whether or not organizations have moved against the death penalty. We are becoming somewhat alone in the world in terms of continuing to make use of the practice. The number of states that are still doing it is shrinking. And so when you look at that total fabric, it's our contention that we've reached the point where the death penalty really ought to be abolished. And so that is our contention in this case. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Your Honor. While Roper may have looked at some international law, I think the Idaho Supreme Court has really narrowed that window. First in Abdullah, they said, therefore, absent some legislative or executive action, a determination by this court that Idaho's death penalty statute is unconstitutional based on evolving standards of decency and public opinion is unsupported. So they're really looking in at that. And fast forward 5 years in the Hurston decision, 2020, the Idaho Supreme Court reaffirmed that view and then also said, quote, we continue to subscribe to the view of legislative bodies as the basis for determining a national consensus. And so, and the reason for that, they explain in Abdullah, is that courts just aren't good at taking a temperature of public opinion and what represents society's views. Now, looking at the states that have capital punishment, according to the resources both sides have cited, there's 27 states that still have it on the books. That's a majority. They've pointed out that there's gubernatorial moratoriums in 6 of those, which is true. But that means worst case scenario, there's 21 states that still have the death penalty on the books and can use it. And what the Idaho Supreme Court said in Hurston is that we're looking for a national consensus. And we're nowhere near a national consensus that the death penalty is somehow immoral or improper or indecent. I would also just note, it's not enough if what you're trying to show is a national consensus, it is not enough to just point to the fact that a state doesn't have the death penalty. You would have to show that the state removed the death penalty because that state believed that it was immoral or improper. So for example, if a fiscally conservative legislature just decides they don't want to fund the death penalty, but they have no moral objection to it, that's not evidence that there's some societal standard that would.
What do you take of evidence from a state who is not enforcing the penalty because, for example, an executive of that state is morally opposed to it and has the power to preclude it from being applied? Should that be considered?
So the Idaho Supreme Court did mention executive action, although in Hurston, they seem to say the better picture is painted by legislative bodies. And I think part of the reason for that is because the executive, it can just depend on the administration that's in power at that moment. A perfect example of that is the United States. The death penalty is on the books. It's currently not being applied, but shortly before the current administration, it was. And I think it's safe to assume that it will be again here shortly. The other thing you have to look at is, why is the executive doing this? For example, the defense cites that Tennessee has currently a moratorium. True, but the governor did that because he said we need to take time to fix the execution protocol. That's not evidence of a national standard that the death penalty is wrong.
So in a state like Tennessee, are they still in the sentencing capital sentences, but just not carrying them out, or have they stopped even trying capital cases?
I can't answer that definitively for Tennessee. My understanding is that they still try them and impose the death sentence, but that it's just not being carried out. I know that to be true, for example, in California, juries are still imposing the death penalty. I know in Ohio, another state that they've pointed to where there's a gubernatorial moratorium, there are 30 scheduled executions in that state. They keep getting pushed back, but the reason they're getting pushed back and the reason for the moratorium is they can't find chemicals to do lethal injection. Again, that's not evidence that there's some standard of decency that's keeping them from doing this. They just can't find the chemicals to do it. So I think,
Well, I mean, you could imply that the standards of decency as applied by the pharmaceutical companies who refuse to take part in it is some measure of that.
potentially, yes, but I think, again, going back to the Idaho Supreme Court's decisions, we're looking specifically at executive and legislative action. And the fact that the legislature or governor is saying we would do this, but we can't get the chemicals, is actually evidence that they still support the death penalty. So I think no matter how you read the numbers, we're not at a place where there is a national consensus that the death penalty is indecent. And so we think the court should continue to follow what the Idaho Supreme Court said in both Abdullah and Hairston and reject their motion. Thank you, Your Honor.
Buttle? Just briefly, Judge, I would caution the court trying to figure out why it is that a particular state either dropped the death penalty or imposed a gubernatorial moratorium. I mean, I think that these things are complicated. That looks an awful lot like trying to figure out from legislative history why something occurred. Half the time, what you see in the questions doesn't necessarily tell you what the legislature had in mind when they finally voted. And so I think the first step, as the United States Supreme Court has set it out, is just to look at the numbers. And then after that, the courts can consider other things.
Or 2021, if you take into account moratoriums. How, I mean, certainly more than a third of the states, how does that represent a consensus?
I would argue that the consensus can also come from the trajectory. So the fact that so many states dropped the death penalty within the last 10 years, and that appears to be the direction that things are going, is something that the court can take into account. I also note a lot of these states that have death rows and don't have a moratorium still aren't actually executing anyone. And so the actual number of executions in the states that are actually executing anybody is less even than that. I think it's something like 13 jurisdictions that are actually doing executions. So anyway, for those reasons, Your Honor, we are asking that you strike the death penalty.
Thank you. All right. I think that leaves us with your motion to trifurcate the proceedings and to apply the rules of evidence in the penalty phase.
Right. So, Your Honor, I tried a case via the trifurcated method. It went smoothly, and we moved this court to do the same thing. If it's not trifurcated,
Which case was that?
that was Renfro.
Which one?
Renfro. If it's not trifurcated, what happens at the in the penalty phase is the state would be putting on both statutory aggravators and non-statutory aggravators. I think the states argued that some of those things.
Isn't there a post-conviction proceeding in which it's alleged that that is ineffective assistance to allow the trifurcation because you make the jury decide about whether or not an aggravating factor is there in the absence of any mitigating evidence that might otherwise affect their decision?
I'm sure there is. But I can't say that I agree, because from a jury's perspective, I mean, you have to realize that these are people who have been pulled in, they don't have legal training, and now you're asking them to make a bunch of different decisions at the same time. And as we pointed out, I mean, we can go back and forth about, what's the, if you don't trifurcate, you're going to put on the victim impact during the penalty phase with everything else, right? And so whether or not there's even a statutory aggravator is now going to be influenced by all of the things that are emotionally really powerful. And so, I mean, we can go back and forth about, who does that prejudice. At the end of the day, a trifurcated proceeding is just simpler for a jury to do their job. They have to be able to make a decision about statutory aggravators to even have a death penalty in a particular case. Being able to do that with just a standalone, do these things actually exist first before you start to get into the mitigating and aggravating? I mean, you can put on some mitigating depending on what the aggravator is at the aggravating portion of the case. You can talk about, you know, future dangerousness and things like that, assuming that the court decides to let it in. But if you don't do it this way, what you risk is that a jury is going to be influenced by non-statutory aggravators, victim impact statements, and on those grounds, say yes to one of the statutory aggravators. And, you know, you also are telling the jury, you know, these things you have to find beyond reasonable doubt, but these things you don't, and do all of that at the same time. And I mean, the studies have shown that juries really want to get these things right, and they really want to follow the law, but oftentimes the instructions that they get aren't really that clear. And I think adding to their burden by cramming it all into one hearing, it's unnecessary. The court has the ability, I think, under Rule of Evidence 106, to let them do the function that they're supposed to do with the statutory aggravators. And then that way they can make that decision. And if they don't find any, you don't even have to do the next part. But if they find one, then you open it up into the state's case in aggravation and the defense case in mitigation. In terms of using the rules of evidence, as we pointed out, a number of courts have said, you know, confrontation clearly needs to be able to apply. You have discovery that needs to go out. Rules of evidence are helpful, and they're certainly helpful when you're talking about the statutory aggravators themselves. That's an area where if you're trying to make a accurate determination of whether or not those things exist such that you can have the death penalty, the use of the rules of evidence is, I think, can be detrimental to both sides if you just kind of allow willy-nilly whatever to come in. So for the other reasons we put in the brief, Judge, we are asking the court to consider doing this as a trifurcated trial if it gets there. Thank you.
And Your Honor, just to briefly address the point about the confrontation clause and the rules of evidence. The defendant has fairly acknowledged in his brief that the Idaho appellate courts have issued binding precedent that's contrary to their argument today. The state's not going to belabor that point. I think the case law is clear and the state briefed that. As to trifurcation, the defense has yet to lay out what exactly this process would look like. And what I mean by that is, at what point it appears, although the defense has not explicitly stated this, that they would encourage this court to adopt a procedure where the state puts on all of its aggravating evidence for all of these statutory factors, and the jury then goes to deliberate on these factors without hearing any of the mitigating evidence. Now, this is very concerning, and particularly, the state briefed this. You take the propensity aggravator, where the jury is tasked with determining whether or not the defendant's going to pose a continuing risk, to send them back to deliberate without allowing them to hear evidence in mitigation. That's very concerning to the state about what that might do to, for example, the appellate record. And I think that post-conviction proceeding in the Renfro case really highlights the concerns with this procedure that they're asking the court to adopt. As to the assertion that this is simply too confusing to the jurors, the court will instruct the jury on what the law is. And as we've argued on these other motions, the court can't just start with the assumption that jurors aren't going to follow the law, that it's simply too concerning or too confusing for the jurors. The jurors will receive instructions. They are presumed to follow those instructions as a matter of law, and the court should assume that these jurors will do as they're instructed. And unless the court has any questions for me, that's all I have. Thank you, Your Honor.
Well, for the record, it really wasn't that confusing. We had the propensity aggravator in that case. We put on evidence that pushed back against that at that point in the case. It's cleaner from the jury's perspective. It was cleaner from our perspective. I don't think we even argued about it. I think the state just went along with it. And I thought it went pretty well. And I definitely want to push back on the idea that, you know, we have a tendency to have these tautologies in the law where we say, well, the jury is great and they'll figure it all out. And so long as we tell them what to do, then they've done what they were told. And there are studies that show that's just not accurate. I mean, there's the jury project. You can read what it's like for people to go through these things. And when we're talking about whether or not somebody's going to be put to death, I think it's important that we, really think hard about how these people are going to make these decisions. If we're going to do a normal, just a penalty session, I definitely think it's something that's going to require some additional instructions. I know the Supreme Court just recently updated a lot of the ICGs, which is great, something that I've been advocating for. But there are additional things that I think are going to have to be told to a jury so that they can understand how that would function. And if you trifurcate it, it's going to make it simpler for them to understand, okay, you've now found this person guilty. Now you're going to be determining whether or not one of these statutory factors exists. This is what they are. This is how they're defined. You have to find this beyond a reasonable doubt. The state's going to do an opening statement and a closing. They'll put on evidence as to whether or not these things exist. This defense is going to come in, question those things, put on their case why those statutory aggravators don't exist. And you're going to make that determination. If you make that determination, then we get to a sentencing proceeding where the state's going to be able to put on any additional aggravators that it wants to put on, and the defense can then put on any other information that they have that's going to be in mitigation. It works, and it worked, regardless of whether or not the SAPD doesn't agree with me. I'd ask the court to consider it. Certainly, if the court decides not to do it, we'll have lots more conversations about how best to do that.
It's an intriguing idea. The concern, of course, is the desire to do this case once and not twice.
I understand.
And there's a protocol that has been approved by the appellate bodies versus the one that you're proposing now. And so that's always in a trial judges who tend to be fairly risk averse difficulty.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, my dance sheet indicates that we have covered all the topics. Did I miss anything from either of your perspectives?
Not from State, Your Honor.
No motions, Your Honor, but I think Miss Massa has one thing.
One
Okay.
housekeeping.
Sure.
Judge, we submitted Professor Cover's PowerPoint and her data. We filed it this morning under seal. We had a conversation that you thought that should probably not be under seal, definitely with the PowerPoint. We have no issues there. It was filed with one thumb drive. We discussed letting us look to see if there is victim information that needs to be redacted. So what I'd like your permission to do is file an amended Exhibit A, and if we'll get things redacted. The one that's filed and you are inclined not to seal, I just don't want it to get out there before we've had an opportunity to review that and redact names.
I'm assuming the state doesn't have an objection to that.
No objection, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, and that's fine, counsel. Let me address, that brings up a good point in terms of just process for filing matters that need to be sealed in some way or the other. Because as we know, the rules for filing require them to be physically filed if you're seeking to have them filed under seal, which causes some difficulty for most of you who are not in the Treasure Valley area. I think perhaps the best way to deal with this is if you're going to file something and there's some portion that needs to be under seal, if you would provide a redacted and an unredacted copy. So for example, I think the defense filed a recent request for discovery and had an exhibit attached that they felt should be sealed. I'm assuming that's why they requested it to be sealed, was because of the exhibit. So you would file that one with, the exhibit just being a blank page saying redacted, and then provide the court and opposing counsel a courtesy copy of the unredacted, and then you can file the unredacted when you are here to get it filed under seal. And then we can let the public have the redacted version so that we, as much information as we can make public, we can.
Do it that way. Thank you.
That works for everybody.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Else for today?
Nothing else for today. There was a motion filed that got placed under seal that the court was going to schedule.
Is that about your jury voir dire procedure? Yeah, I think that's probably more appropriate to take up as we get closer to the pretrial than anything, because it really deals with essentially what is and isn't allowed in voir dire and in questioning. So I think it's just a little early in the game yet to get to that, from my perspective at least.
Your Honor, the only thought I have about that is perhaps talking about that may cause the court to think we should begin voir dire maybe a tiny bit earlier than is currently scheduled.
Well, we can, I think our pretrial is in May, correct?
I don't recall.
I think it's
I
in
would trust the
May.
court on that.
And our voir dire is set to begin in August or late July. I can't remember. So I think we have some flexibility there, and perhaps we'll address it at another hearing before the pretrial. I just thought with the number of motions we had today that it was probably something we could save for a later day.
Fair enough. Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
So that I'm clear on the record with respect to why I sealed that, I don't think you submitted that intending it to be sealed originally. The reason I did is because it had in there specific questions that can and can't be asked of folks who are being questioned for voir dire. And because of the extensive publicity here, I don't want to unnecessarily limit our available groups of veneermen because they've read something about what questions to specifically expect to be asked. And so that was my reason for sealing that. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Everybody have safe travels back. I will take the matters under advisement and issue written opinions forthwith. Thank you. Thank you.
All rise. Court is in recess.
Okay. So I did not catch if there was any kind of resolution there. I was reading the chat and
I don't
also trying
think
to look
so.
something up.
I don't think so. Sorry, there.
Opening the window in there.
Ah, shut up.
Oh, Mouse says she wants to thank Strange and Bob and chat. She's so glad she decided to muster up and come to chat. She said
Yes.
you all have made a saddened heart feel wanted and loved. She appreciates all of us.
Heck yeah.
Mouse, we love you. I hope you're doing okay. Sounds like you're dealing with a lot of stuff. We sure care about you here. What did you have right there, Bob? Did you have something you were going to put on there?
No.
Oh,
No, I took the stream off.
the Ada County.
The live
Yeah.
code stream.
Right. So that's 2 lives we did in one day, guys. And it looks like, oh, Mouse, you are loved. People are telling you that you are loved and appreciated, and we love you and we appreciate you. Army Doc says he loves you. Very, very sweet. I was gonna say, we did do 2 lives today, and today is Thursday. So I'm thinking it is possible that we would go live on Sunday. If you guys want to make suggestions, you can do so in the community tab. That's where we put all the posts for like surveys and different things I ask about what you guys want to see. If you're a paid member, I'm going to make a paid member post for you guys to vote on something. So if you are a paid member, make sure to watch for that post because I am going to ask you something about paid member exclusive content on there. If you are not a paid member, you are welcome to suggest any kind of content whatsoever as well. And we can be reached on the email, which is in the channel description, or on Instagram.
Did you also want maybe some videos from or something we were talking about yesterday?
Yeah, if anybody is interested in being in a video at the end of the month on this channel and you're willing to be on camera or your voice, please email us or send me a message on Instagram. Also, we have Twitter. Also, we have Threads. Also, we have Twitch. Also, we have, what did I miss? TikTok. So you guys, if you don't know, we're on TikTok, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and YouTube.
Yeah.
Don't really know many of you that are on Threads. I believe Cyborg's on Threads. And I know Texas Ganja Toker, who's not here right now, is also on Threads because that's how he found us. So for now, you guys are going to have to rewatch videos until Sunday. And I promise you that we will be live on Sunday, probably in the evening, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the best idea because everybody pretty much has stuff going on Sundays. I don't know what you guys all have going on, but probably in the evening after dinner time, we will be posting things in the community post every single day, always. So always check the community post for a new thumbnail or any kind of new stuff. And like I said, paid members, I'm going to make a paid member post. I don't do that too often. So take a look in the next 10 minutes and we will see you guys on Sunday evening. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Love you guys.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you later.